can begin my introduction to Swami Baneshananda ji, who is president of the Vedanta Gesellschaft in Germany. Many of you have heard the name of the Ramakrishna Mutt and the Ramakrishna Mission, but you may not have heard the name of the Vedanta Gesellschaft. The reason why you have not heard the name or connected the two is probably because the names are different. And these two names are different because Swami Vivekananda, who founded the Ramakrishna Mutt and the Ramakrishna Mission in 1897, actually founded the Vedanta Society of New York in 1894. So many of the Ramakrishna Mission centers, the Mutt centers outside of India, are called Vedanta centers. So it is in that respect that the Vedanta Gesellschaft is located in Berlin. And the president of the Vedanta Gesellschaft is Swami Baneshananda ji. As some of you might know, Swami Vivekananda and his Guru Sri Ramakrishna are epoch-making personalities in the history of modern India. The manner in which they are epoch-making can be the source of another lecture, but certainly there is a lot of impact that the spiritual practices of Sri Ramakrishna and the spiritual and intellectual work of Swami Vivekananda contributed not only to the formation of modern India as we see it, but has made an impact on the world. Swami Baneshananda is a very senior monk of the Ramakrishna order. Many of the senior monks of the Ramakrishna order are also very erudite teachers. In some senses, the work of teaching and understanding Indian philosophy is an important part of the work that the Vedanta societies perform. And it is here that I felt that the presence of Swami Baneshananda ji was very important, because some of us who have access to Western knowledge and who also have substantial access to what is happening in modern India need not have that kind of access to the classical languages and the philosophies of India. And it is in that respect that when we invited Swami Baneshananda, who is the president of the Vedanta Gesellschaft, now located in Berlin, he said that he will deliver a talk in search of the source of India's cultural unity. And many of you would have seen the abstract of that talk. So the question is, India is a very diverse country. At the same time, people like Vivekananda, Mohandas Gandhi, maybe Abul Kalam Azad, many others thought that there was something to India which was Indian. And through his erudition and knowledge of the philosophy and work on the ground, we cordially invite Swami Baneshananda ji to make his presentation and lecture on this very important topic in search of the source of India's cultural unity. Swamiji, the floor is yours.
Namaste. Good afternoon, everybody. Guten Tag. Let me begin with a word of gratitude for the organizers of this talk, particularly for Dr. Rahul Mukherji, for their great kindness in inviting me to present my views on this topic. All participants, Anandji, faculty members, my gratitude to you also. Surely, it's a great honor for me. On the other hand, my participation in this program is an attempt towards enriching my own knowledge on the subject. Surely, my humble presentation is never going to be exhaustive. much more remains to be researched upon and, more importantly, practiced. I have just tried to look at the issue from a perspective that I think is both important and urgent. As we know, the word culture covers both material and non-material things. Among non-material things, one would count language,
Recording in progress.
rituals, customary beliefs, values, social norms and forms, practices, wisdom, etc. of a racial, religious or social group. Members of an identifiable group are generally bound by a set of common ideas, beliefs and standards. However, material things do not speak much about culture, as the qualities like restraint over oneself and one's emotions, polished manners, and consideration for others do. These make Indian culture not only fascinating but worthy of emulation also. It is therefore important to assess the vitality of Indian culture and its relevance in today's world. Indian culture, even though it conforms to such comprehensive definitions, differs from other cultures in some special ways. Of course, there are many similarities between the cultures of the East. The famous Chinese professor Lin Yutang wrote a book entitled The Wisdom of China and India. But he took up writing the first part of the book on the wisdom of India. He reversed the order that is suggested by the title of the book. Why? He wrote in the introduction, and I quote, "India was China's teacher in religion and imaginative literature, the world's teacher in trigonometry, quadratic equations, grammar, phonetics, Arabian Nights, animal fables, chess, as well as in philosophy, and that she inspired Boccaccio, Goethe, Herder, Schopenhauer, Emerson, and probably also old Aesop." There is no doubt that it is a democratic culture that sustains the world's largest multi-ethnic democracy so far. Some specialities of Indian culture to be narrated. Number one, I will take up the idea of continuity. Some historians have held Indian culture in high esteem on account of its tremendous vitality to continue while many others have perished. Dr. A.L. Basham was impressed by this special trait of India's culture, continuity. He writes, I will quote it, "The ancient civilization of India differs from those of Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Greece in that its traditions have been preserved without a break down to the present day." And now I cannot hold my urge to quote the poetic words of Swami Vivekananda, bringing out the same evaluation with amazing clarity. I quote, "We continue to live, and if Manu is one of the ancient lawgivers of India, if Manu came back today, he would not be bewildered and would not find himself in a foreign land. The same laws are here, laws adjusted and through thousands and thousands of years, customs, the outcome of the acumen of ages, and the experiences of centuries that seem to be eternal." Then I would take up the next point, that is openness. Let me draw your attention to just a few simple facts that people in India take for granted and do not understand their immense value and therefore the greatness of Indian culture. This also makes it evident as to why it is not a surprise that many thinkers all over the world look at Indian culture with wonder. Many countries in the world are home to several religions. That is why they are predominantly either an Islamic state or a Christian state or a Jewish state and so on. Some countries in the modern times may call themselves secular states, but the reality is that they patronize one particular faith. India too is a land of many religions. And the fact is that even though it is predominantly Hindu, India does not call itself a Hindu state. In India, you have national holidays for festivals of all religions. There is no restriction for people of all faiths to raise their mosques, temples, churches, pagodas, and so on. Religious minorities enjoy constitutional safeguard and privileges. In India, to practice their faith and also run their activities, religious, social, and all. And you may know that there is subsidy granted by the government of India to the Hajj pilgrims. Originally, while designing the national flag of India, some people interpreted the significance of the colors in the national flag, like the orange or saffron color epitomizes selflessness from the Hindu religion. The white, the peace from Christian religion. The green, the growth from Muslim religion, and the wheel, the humane tradition from Buddhist religion. Well, I am not certainly highlighting ancient history about the wonder that was India, but talking about the wonder that is India continuously. It is happening even today. These are things unthinkable in other traditions and cultures. Even though we know and claim that the world is becoming more and more open, progressive, and borderless, and thereby humanity is becoming more and more cultured. Then third point is humanness. That is a special feature of Indian culture, which is called humanness. In spite of suffering centuries of exploitation, ridicule, conversion, subjugation, and bloodbath, Indian culture has never taken resort to violence to even the score. Rather, it has kept its arms open to welcome all world citizens to be part of it, enrich it, and get enriched by it. It acts as a tolerant and understanding mother, sometimes without knowing how to shape its unruly children. In a very thoughtful passage in his book, The Wonder That Was India, A.L. Basam has distinguished this special trait of Indian culture in these words, and I quote, "At most periods of her history, India, though a cultural unit, has been torn by internecine wars. Yet, our overall impression is that in no other part of the ancient world were the relations of man and of man and the state so fair and humane. In all her history of warfare, Hindu India has few tales to tell of cities put to the sword or of the massacre of non-combatants. There was sporadic cruelty and oppression, no doubt. But in comparison with conditions in other early cultures, it was mild. To us, the most striking feature of ancient Indian civilization is its humanity." End quote. Then the fourth point I would like to discuss is inwardness. One of On the whole, the geographical location of the Indian subcontinent offered to its people ample scope to develop more of the inner man than the outer one. That is a greater contributor to all human endeavors in a symbiotic life system. We need to change our indices that are supporting a lopsided assessment. There had been a debate between some scientists from CERN, Switzerland, some religious representatives and philosophers on 15th October 2012. The event in Geneva, Switzerland is described as a search for common ground between religion and science over how the universe began. Mr. Andrew Pinsett, research director of the Ian Ramsay Center of Science and Religion at Oxford University, said that science risked trying to turn society into a machine if it did not engage with religion and philosophy. Again, he has told BBC that science in isolation is great for producing stuff, but not so good for producing ideas. We will look at the cultural unity in a multicultural society as we find in India. India is not promoting a melting pot experimentation. Rather, it became a salad bowl. Indians are living in a multicultural society where all different cultural groups are trying to be committed to a few basic traits that define them as Indians. There is unity underlying the varieties of traditions, regional cultures, languages, manners and customs, regions and religions, from north to south and east to west. All the inhabitants of this land of glorious heritage share this unity. Indian society has advanced by a synthesis of all contradictory realities. This is a benevolent process of growth in respect of a resilient culture. Many races and people have contributed to form Indian culture, the keynote of which is synthesis on the basis of eternal values. There have been many players like the universal yoga, etc. in the drama of unifying India in modern times. For want of time, let me narrate the contribution of one of such players, the Krishna Movement, which Professor Mukherji very kindly mentioned. It's a quite modern phenomenon. Undeniably, it is a great and silent force. It is the only movement of its kind that has a national character, and therefore it is capable of strengthening the bond of India's national culture across the length and breadth of that country. It does not exclude anyone from the purview of its field of service. The word service has a different connotation for the Ramakrishna order. It does not mean mere charity, but it stands as a means to personal spiritual enlightenment. Hence, service to humanity is nothing but service to the divine in man. Swami Vivekananda famously said, "I worship that God who by the ignorant is called man." It is therefore beneficial not only for the one who is served, but more so for the one who serves. Well, we will take up some disconcerting points. It is not good to live in the world of dreams, but to face the harsh realities and paradoxes that we face when we are awake. First of all, the reality is, no doubt, that we may doubt if the unity of Indian culture, which we love to stress upon, is but a myth. This is because there is deterioration of values in almost all walks of life, so we think. family life, social life, political life, economic life, religious life, and most importantly, individual's life. There are conflicts, riots, violent clashes between various communities because of disagreement on some basic belief systems or standards, which is being exploited by vested interests. Many ethnic groups are demanding for separate identities. Even many do not recognize themselves to be part of India itself. These are all very true. But still there is no doubt that we continue to live and survive as many distinct cultures in a multicultural society. Well, how to answer moral decadence? Sri Krishna says in the Gita, while commenting about such problems, that they are but natural historical aberrations. Undeniably, it is the same history all over the world. Sri Krishna is right. The Greek legend Socrates lived in 5th century BCE. He wrote, and I quote, "What is happening to our young people? They disrespect their elders, they disobey their parents, they ignore the law, they riot on the streets inflamed with wild notions, their morals are decaying. What is to become of them?" End quote. And see, about the same time, the Chinese philosopher Confucius wrote, "In a country well governed, poverty is something to be ashamed of, and in a country badly governed, wealth is something to be ashamed of." So, friends, we may be inclined to say that our time is not special in so many ways, and we are historically modern, if at all. Another common grievance of people is that we are still in the grip of the deplorable caste system. But one may very well ask, who are these we? This seems to be a very hard question to answer. If we do not recognize this caste system, then we are free from it. To say the least, caste is a multifaceted and complex problem. Many great reformers like Buddha, Guru Nanak, Raja Ram Mohan Rai, Swami Vivekananda, Mahatma Gandhi, and others have tried to eliminate this system. Humanity has succeeded, or still struggling to succeed, in abolishing such horrible systems like slavery, burning the sati, resistance against widow remarriage, apartheid, jihad, death penalty for apostasy, gender inequality, inequality of all kinds, mutual distrust leading to fanaticism, abuse of human rights, and so on and so forth. And with the progress of culture and civilization, we are hoping to succeed in removing many other oppressive and prejudiced systems throughout the world. We have to understand that caste is a social system and not a religious one. The Sanskrit word varna means profession, not caste. Well, it will take 2 more lectures to point out how people with deep-rooted bias misinterpret Hindu religion by equating it with holy cows, as if unholy pig or holy ghost, etc. are fine. With caste, as if inequalities based on class, gender, color, etc. are good. Or with karma. Well, without knowing the meaning of karma, karma actually means both good and bad karmas, not only bad karmas, and so on. Anyway, Sri Krishna brought his commendable authority to bear on this caste differentiation, saying, all those who tread the path of God, whatever their birth, race, gender, or caste, even those who are atheists, even those whom society scorns as bad guys, have the right to attain the supreme destination if they follow the path of righteousness. He says this in the Gita. At the same time, I don't think that it is a simple issue to address when we see that sometimes caste privileges stand as a saving deterrent against religious conversion. On the other hand, the critics do not know that there are myriads of privileges enjoyed by the so-called low caste people under Indian constitution and laws. You need to check the list of such privileges in the schedules before believing that caste is an oppressive system. Still, we need to be concerned with this issue. Undoubtedly, even in independent India, we lack the right political will to address the root of the problem squarely and to bring about a root and branch reform in this system and abolish it. Until that happens, we have to struggle in our own way to reduce this scar, most probably following, as we always do, the path of least resistance. The differences standing as challenges in the path of our unity are not more than what we have achieved so far, and most importantly, maintained it so long. I would rather blame it to the evil effect of globalization and reckless aping of failed experimentations of the West. These are the causes of erosion of Indian cultural values. India can still boast as the teacher for experimentation on democracy and a democratic culture. Our national institutions have removed the barriers in respect of the plurality in castes, languages, customs, ethnicities, and allegiances. We have succeeded in having all India representation in politics, the army, the postal services, business, both private and public sectors, citizenship, Indian administrative services, sports, cinema industry, etc., etc. Let us look at the source of this unity. As we have seen above, the vital, all-embracing spirit of India is the basis on which the unity of Indian culture depends. This spirit is the contribution of the old Vedantic religion. It does not discriminate between seeming differentiations that identify smaller groups. Rather, our attention is led to the underlying truth of the oneness of humanity. If the fundamental concept of life is not all-inclusive, it is difficult to forge unity just by utilitarian standards. It is true that no truth is an exclusive property of any race. Still, let us have no doubt that Vedanta can proudly claim the glory of being the only one in discovering and, most importantly, putting into practice this grand unifying truth. This truth has been confirmed time and again as the panacea for all discordant notes in ideas and practices that are exclusive in their essence. Our ancestors lived a life in consonance with this principle of oneness and handed down the result of their experimentation to the future generations. Had there been no concept of unity at the core of our philosophy and lifestyle, and also the view of life, the unity of India would have become a memory today, like many other united countries of the past. But we need to do more. Indians have to come out of their slumber. We need to actively highlight these values of universal appeal and need. They are the ingredients of true globalization. That will keep humanity together. There is no use having them in our treasure troves. We need to patent them, love them, live by those values, and spread them. Passive goodness is not a force, but a belief. In the age of ideas and behavior, we are tending to unite in a wrong way. Extremist organizations are reaping the benefits of our borderless technology to spread cross-border hatred and to actualize their goals. We need to take advantage of the same modern facilities for bringing human values together. This would be a proper use of our discoveries. Here are a few points that we need to promote to continue with and reinforce this unity. A body that houses these ideologies needs to be protected and nurtured. A doctor is required to be kept healthy so that he or she is able to take care of the health of others. Dr. R.C. Majumdar and others wrote in the book An Advanced History of India, and I quote, Swami Vivekananda believed that the present warring world can be saved by spiritual teachings, which India alone can impart. But before she can do this, she must enjoy the respect of other nations by raising her own status. End quote. So let us look at those points which we want to highlight. Number one is oneness of the reality. Vedanta judges the individual's timeless value at the spiritual level. This value does not change in the midst of myriads of experiences of changefulness. It addresses us as Amritasya Putraha, children of immortal bliss. It is a truth discovered by the Upanishads as a result of ages of rigorous investigation. Swami Vivekananda loved to call us heirs of immortal bliss. We need to proclaim this truth about human spiritual value by all means. And then the second point which Indian culture highlights is unity in diversity. Sri Krishna hints at this idea in an aphoristic style. Sutre Maniganaiva, that is, many pearls threaded together by one string would make a beautiful garland or necklace. This is the message for a pluralistic society. The Vedantic idea of one unitary existence is universal because it does not label itself as religious or secular. We are all part of the same one reality. Third is family value. Family values have universal applicability. They contribute to the handing down of traditional culture to the future generations. That is the special human trait as discussed in the book Selfish Genes by Professor Dawkins. A family and not an individual. A family and not an individual is the smallest basic unit of a society. So many things depend on how well this basic unit functions. In the modern situation, it is becoming increasingly difficult to hold on to such a system. Also in many parts of the world, even nuclear families or elementary families as they call it, are crumbling down to single parent families and sometimes sole parent families. This is not paying off in the long run. In India, many communities, almost all the communities there, even the communities who live in the hills, they try to preserve their family structure. Those nations and cultures that abandoned these values some years ago are now pining for them. Sometime back on 25th December 2011, Queen Elizabeth, in her Christmas message to the nation, stressed the need for living in families. We may also recall that in their second presidential debate on October 16, 2012, both President Barack Obama and Governor Mitt Romney of USA underscored the need of taking care of children at home by both parents as one of the ways to reduce violence in schools. India needs to highlight family values for the benefit of its own cultural unity also. Number 4 is ethics. In our tradition, ethics and moral values are based on the universal spiritual truth of oneness of all existence, on what man is and not what man ought to do. Ethical values that are based on utilitarianism do not go very far. We have observed that the Western nations, where pragmatic ethical values really work well, cannot boldly say that utilitarian ethics serve all purposes. Neither do the ethics based on fear of God's punishment help. People do not like such ideas. India need not borrow residues of such failed ideas. We can very well research upon our own resources and sell them to the world. Alien ideas are percolating through that structure of unity and destabilizing it. Number 5, harmony of religions. Not tolerance, but acceptance should be the spontaneous attitude of all. Hindus can live happily in the same family without conflict, even though different members follow different ways of religious lives. Hence, it is ingrained in their belief that all ways lead to the same goal. The acceptance of the hosts of gods and goddesses itself is proof of their same-sightedness. This is not called pantheism. This is called panentheism. Approaching one God through different means, through different figures and facts. In recent times, Sri Ramakrishna researched on the ultimate goal of religions. In order to arrive at a verified conclusion, he himself practiced disciplines of various paths within the fold of Hinduism and also Christianity and Islam, Buddhism. His final declaration is, as many faiths, so many paths. Jato ma tato path. We have no problem to accept all religions as true, to accept all religions as true, when we look at their essential universal teachings. We are not taught to tolerate others, because there is a very thin line between tolerance and intolerance. We have been taught to accept. Of course, Hinduism differs from many others in respect of the essentials like rebirth and sin. Hindus are the followers of the oneness of the reality, do not conflict with others on these issues. So, Mahatma Gandhi reassures all, saying, I quote, "Let no one commit this mistake of thinking that Rama Rajya means a rule of the Hindus. My Rama is another name for Khuda or God. The establishment of such a Rajya would not only mean welfare of the whole of the Indian people, but of the whole world." End quote. Hinduism is not a closed system based solely on the experiences of only one saint or only one prophet or only one incarnation of God. Knowing the truth is not the sole right of one person only. Like any science, Hinduism keeps its doors open to accommodate all new and renewed spiritual experiences. It has room for dualists, non-dualists, and even atheists. The world is waking up to such realities as it needs its religious creeds to be more and more open and universal. In an article in Newsweek, USA, under the title, "We Are All Hindus Now," Lisa Miller, the editor of the magazine, laments that more and more Americans are becoming Hindus because they, number one, believe in reincarnation theory, and number two, believe that all religions are valid ways to realize God. Let me quote Swami Vivekananda. He makes a significant statement with regard to why it is necessary for Indian culture to survive. He says, "Shall India die? Then from the world all spirituality will be extinct, all moral perfection will be extinct, all sweet-souled sympathy for religion will be extinct, all ideality will be extinct, and in its place will reign the duality of lust and luxury as the male and female deities, with money as its priest, fraud, force, and competition its ceremonies, and the human soul its sacrifice. Such a thing can never be. The power of suffering is infinitely greater than the power of doing. The power of love is infinitely greater, of greater potency than the power of hatred." End quote. To endorse this statement, let me quote the British biologist J.B.S. Hollanday, who ended up becoming an Indian citizen. He was one of the supporters of neo-Darwinism, you know. I would quote it from the book India After Gandhi by Ramachandra Guha. He writes, that is, Mr. Hollanday writes, "No doubt, I am in some sense a citizen of the world. But I believe Thomas Jefferson that one of the chief duties of a citizen is to be a nuisance to the government of his state. As there is no world state, I cannot do this. On the other hand, I can be and am a nuisance to the government of India, which has the merit of permitting a good deal of criticism, though it reacts to it rather slowly. So I want to be labeled as a citizen of India." I would like to conclude with Sir Arnold Toynbee. He has good news for Indian culture. And I will quote from the book One World and India, that is written by him, Sir Arnold Toynbee, the famous historian. I quote, "It is already becoming clear that a chapter which had a Western beginning will have to have an Indian ending if it is not to end in self-destruction of the human race. At this supremely dangerous moment in human history, the only way of salvation is the ancient Hindu way. Here we have attitude and spirit that can make it possible for the human race to grow together into a single family." End quote here. So I would like to stop here. And once again, I extend my grateful thanks to the organizers for organizing this talk.
Thank you very much for this exposition on the idea of India. And please raise your hands or give a question in the chat box. But before we do that, would Professor Anand Kumar like to come in and ask a question at this point?
Well, this is a very impressive overview for all of us from Swami Baneshananda at an hour when we are looking more and more crisis built in diversities and very limited space for promoting unity. I do agree Swamiji's point is around the idea of seva and oneness in recognizing each other's potential and problems. I was wondering if Swamiji would like to reflect about the problem of religious diversities threatening the architecture of democratic India at this point, because we already have solved the problem of multilinguality, but multi-religiosity is refusing to melt away. So that may be one question from the perspective of Ramakrishna Mission and Swamiji.
Yes,
Thank
Swamiji,
you.
please.
Well, if anyone has anything to contribute to this, you can do so. Otherwise, I will take up the question.
Does anyone else have a related question?
Or to contribute the ideas about this.
Does anybody have a related question regarding the, yes, is Mr. Mishra, is your question a related question?
No, I think we'll let Swamiji answer first, and then after that, I will ask my question.
Okay, sure.
Thank you, Anandji, for this question. Well, as I hinted at this idea by quoting Sri Krishna, Sri Krishna says that these are historical aberrations. If you look at the history and take up the time, not in few years, but in ages, then you'll see that there would be such types of ups and downs in all fields of our life. So sometimes some passing phases may disturb us. But if we are sticking to the basic ideas of unity, that's what Ramakrishna Mission does, Ramakrishna Order does. We have been working out these ideals ages together, several, or maybe 100 years we have been working in this field without being forced to divert our attention to something which is not of permanent value or temporary agitating ideas or agitating occurrences. So we look at the things from that perspective, and we have hope that what we experience at one given point of time will also come to pass, and people will learn through their experiences. In our order, we have one idea that when we go to a new country, we try to understand that we have to be there for some time, at least 1 year, to understand the situation. And within that 1 year, our own ideas will undergo changes. And we will know that our initial ideas were wrong. So some experimentation will be done, and we have to allow those experimentations to prove that our approaches were wrong. Then we will learn from our experiences, though we will learn the hard way. So we are not losing our hope in these respects, because the main idea of unity is there, and that is not in the field of agitating movements, but in our homes, in our families, we follow those unity, the messages of unity. So that's what Ramakrishna Order does, and I have visited many parts of India and worked with the tribals also. I have seen that these things are practiced at home, in the families. Therefore, there is great hope that we will be able to overcome some problems which we are facing at the moment in India itself, but we have to give some time. so that these things will automatically subside, and also people involved in these things, they will also learn that they were mistaken. We have to allow that time. In our order, there is a saying that let this person work and prove himself or herself to be useless. So like that. Thank you very much.
Yes, Mr. Anish Mishra.
Thank you, Swamiji. Thank you very much.
Okay, yes, thank you very much, Swamiji, for the lecture. I have a very interesting question, though, to ask you. Is that, firstly, you mentioned this point about harmony of religion and how the Swami Vivekananda school of thought actually taught not to tolerate the other religion, but to accept all religion as true. Now, the things that this has been represented as an idea of Hinduism. However, you have spoken about Swami Vivekananda. I would like to speak about Swami Dayananda Saraswati. If we look at Swami Dayananda Saraswati in his book Satyartha Prakash, which in the English translation is called Truth and Light, in the last, which is a 14 chapter book, in the last few chapters, Swami Dayananda Saraswati has actually criticized all the major religions in the world, from Buddhism, Sikhism, Christianity, Islam, and even within Hinduism itself, he has criticized all the other schools of thought. And he has said that idolatry in Hinduism is wrong. He has espoused the idea of Vedic monotheism, and the fact that we don't, and that's why the Ghar Wapsi program is also there. Ghar Wapsi is also a product of Swami Dayananda Saraswati, because how can there be Ghar Wapsi if we accept that Christianity and Islam and all the other religions are true? So the basis of so this actually gives Ghar Wapsi can be traced to what Swami Dayananda has brought in, and also you speak about one universal truth, but don't you think that to arrive at the truth, it is necessary to actually negate the untruths? So my question to you is that how does the Swami Vivekananda school of thought differs with the teachings of Swami Dayananda Saraswati in his most important book, Satyartha Prakash? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question. There are many questions involved in it, and we need to discuss many things. First thing is that Vedic religion does not preach monotheism. That is not there. Monotheism is believing in one God, and that is the only God. There is no theistic idea in Vedantic religion ultimately. So that is one thing we need to clarify, but that's apart. Thing is that sometime back we were opening this center in Berlin, and one of our friends came here, and he was talking with me, and he said, Swamiji, aap to havan nahi karte hain, you do not do havan. So we do practice havan, but in a short scale, small scale, when we do our ritualistic worship. The thing is that Havana means in the Arya Samaj tradition, the Havana is an elaborate thing. So then I asked him, do you practice this Havana? Then he said, yes, we do. I said, then you do it. You do it, you have to do it, because you have taken up this path, you have to do it. But let us do whatever we are doing. You just cannot convert everyone to one way, and there will be, and the whole field will be left open to decay and get destroyed. So there are varieties. There is a legal section, there will be a section taking care of the food, there would be a section, a different section, different ministries like that. So why should we expect everyone to conform to the one structure? That is very wrong. That is why it is the multicultural, multi-religious ideas. But the oneness, everything is held together with this. And when you are talking about other religions outside Hinduism, so Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda, they said that all religions are true, provided you are trying to reach the goal of that religion and following the path, spiritual path, not following the political path or anything. So the provided word has to be there. They say all roads lead to Rome. It is not true. All roads are not leading to Rome. My road goes to Cologne. Your road may go to Austria. So then why do we call all roads lead to Rome? So there is a provided clause. Provided Rome is our destination, then only all roads will lead to Rome. So that is the idea, that you can approach the same truth from different, following different paths through different religions, provided you are trying to reach the goal of religion. And due to time and climate, practices will be different. Practices are different. Like they say that Ma Hinsat Sarva Bhutani, that is the Vedic statement, do not harm any human being. And that is the idea in the Charter of Human Rights also. Do not deprive anyone of life. But then if you try to kill others, then you will be deprived of your life. Following that provision in the Charter of Human Rights, this provision also comes. If you don't follow that, then you will be punished. So therefore, this multicultural society is based on one singular idea, should be based on then other. But if you think that we will remove all the varieties and make everything one, that is not practically possible, and theoretically also that is a very disastrous idea. And in what way we differ, means Ramakrishna Vivekananda's ideas differ from Dayananda Saraswati? In no way it differs. It rather says that, yeah, you do that, that is fine for bringing peace and solace to people. And whatever we are doing, we too are doing good to people. So there are different ways to approach, to help people. So why should I take up your way? You may be a doctor, that is, you are qualified to practice that trade. But I may be a teacher, I will do that. So why do you say that I should be a doctor? It is like that.
Any other questions? This is a good opportunity to ask questions because Swami Baneshananda ji still has some time. And yes, Ananda, please.
Yes, namaste.
Let me introduce Dr. Ananda Mishra, who actually teaches Sanskrit in our institution, where Sanskrit has been taught for many years. In fact, it is an Indology tradition that has among its greats even Professor Heinrich Zimmer, who is regarded as one of the great Indologists. So Anand, please ask your question.
Namaste, Swamiji. Thank you very much. And also namaste, Professor Anand Kumar. Nice to see you after so many years. I come from Varanasi and I have very sweet memories of Professor Kumar also. It's not a question, just a little bit of reflection. First of all, thank you very much for this really very all-comprehensive overview also. I was just reflecting on one point which in your last answer also you mentioned about it, that there is a very sort of practical sagacity in Indian tradition to allow others to do what they think as right, but at the same time keep doing what I think as right. And you just gave also the example of Havana, etc. Now, my question also is because as Professor Kumar was saying, that there is a very strange time, a real danger sort of about the plurality and multiplicity of religions that are in India coexisting, and now a kind of idealism-based radicalism coming up. And my question is, this entire ideal of unity, the sort of functionality of the relationship between this abstract ideal philosophical unity on the one hand, and the real felt plurality division sometimes also. So this connection, if it is inward, as in, for example, in Vivekananda Mission's order, then it is very useful. But if it is sort of outward leads to radicalization also. And what do you think could be a kind of a balance, a check also to keep this also so that it doesn't go out? Because most of the religion, if they fight with other religion, they fight in the name of truth. Everyone says that I am true, but still at the end they fight. So this idealism might also take to radicalism. And what do you think is the way to handle it? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So as I said, that first thing is that idealism.
Swamiji, I think Professor Madhurika Banerjee from the LSE has a related question. Should we take that question together, or do you want to answer this one?
Okay, of course.
Yes, Professor Banerjee, please come on in.
Thank you so much, Professor Mukherjee. Just to I apologize, I'm not able to switch on my camera for the moment. And also, I'm Madhulika Banerjee from Delhi University, not from LSE, that's my sister. This often happens to us, so I thought I should point. Thank you so much, Swamiji, for this lecture. I am asking you a question that has worried me for a long time, and many of us, and it's related to the question, and I'm a political scientist, you see, so for me, what is happening today in India calls for some kind of urgent action. Different kinds of urgent actions are being planned and being taken, but one thing which I find is missing, and I would like to ask someone like yourself, is that, you know, the fact that Hinduism is a religion that is so diverse, is so plural, and as you just said in response to the question on Dayanand Saraswati, that, you know, the practices are so different and all are equally acceptable. Today, the one requirement is that those Hindu voices that believe that what is being done in the name of Hinduism is not accurate, actually blatantly wrong. How are those voices going to come together? When, I should say, are those voices going to come together and articulate themselves clearly? And can we not expect that, yeah, my camera's come on. Can we not expect that, you know, this voice will articulate itself clearly in response to what is happening today? Voices like yourself, because, you know, I'm a practicing Hindu, I'm a believing Hindu. But of course, my practice of Hinduism, my belief of Hinduism is very different and does not identify with Hindutva. Don't you think that today we need some system, some dialogue between those who are practicing Hindus and do not believe in Hindutva, and those who insist that the interpretation of Hinduism as Hindutva must carry the day? How is that going to happen? I'd be very, very keen to hear what you have to say on this. Thank you.
Yeah, as I said earlier, thank you very much for these questions, both of you. As I said earlier, we are practitioners and we practice, we hold interreligious conferences in different places throughout the world in front of our own congregation. You see, this is not a just problem in India, it is a problem throughout the world. Religion is getting mixed up with politics, and in these countries, I live in Germany, and you know, the things are also turning towards that end. Throughout the world, the same type of problems. So for us, it is very difficult to take up the whole thing as something that we will go all out for that purpose. But we are following some path, and I have joined the Ramakrishna order because of its ideals. that it will provide me the scope for my own spiritual liberation, and at the same time that I can help others. So that is why I have chosen this order. Otherwise, I could have chosen any other order which would have suited my ideas. So that is so, and if the Ramakrishna Mission suddenly today says, no, it will change these ideals, then it will be difficult for me to continue. That is the honest confession. The thing is that we are practitioners, we are practicing these ideals, and also not only inter-religious conferences, we hold intra-religious conferences also to forge common grounds between our own different denominations. And also we try to help other religions to understand our position. Well, it is also true that other religions are also organizing inter-religious conferences, and we attend those conferences. But the problem is that the problem is in practice. While we go back and when we are holding interreligious conferences, we do it in front of our own congregation. But others don't do that. They do it as at the interreligious conferences. From the pulpit of those conferences, they speak of tolerance, mostly tolerance, but sometimes acceptance also. But when they go back, they cannot say those things to their own congregations. So this is the reality throughout the world. It is not that it is the reality in India. I would tell you, though I don't want to share it fully with you, but some portions of it I can share with you. One Australian gentleman, he came to Ramana Ashrama in Tiruvannamalai. He became the new editor of the Mountain Path magazine. And I was the editor of our English magazine in Chennai, that is known as Vedanta Keshari. So he was a wonderful gentleman, and he came and started talking with me how to improve on that magazine and all these things. Then he asked a question, Swamiji, this will be my question, but you have all the freedom not to answer this. So he said that I like Hinduism, I like the tolerance or acceptance of Hinduism, and a very peaceful religion. Ages together, it has proved to be peaceful. But now, it was in 2002 or 3 like that, that time, in 2002 and 3. He was saying that what I see that some kind of radical elements have come into this system, Hindu system. So what do you say about that? Then I said, you see, do you think that we are radicalized as Ramakrishna order? Then he said, no, never you can say that. He said, then I said, there are so many such orders, so many such Hindu organizations who are not radicalized, as you say. But also there should be some political system to take care of all these things. And when other religions are also politicizing their ideals. So from Hindu religion, some political reaction should be there, but I am too small to think of those things. But what I would share with you that there are so many like us who follow this peace, path of peace, but our voices are very, not so much heard, and we follow the path of least resistance, and sometimes helplessly also. But still we stick to our ideals and we follow it, and that helps a lot. We are very much aware of that. So this way we can try, but we cannot do much about that. And that is a really big problem, and maybe I may squarely turn the table on you and say that it would be your problem and you try to find out some solution to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Swamiji. There's a student of mine who is sitting next to me. He is asking this question. His name is Farhan Zahir. That Swamiji, how do you see the rise of Hindutva in the West, and how much is it damaging the image of India in the world?
I am not very familiar with that in the West. I have been living here for more than 19 years. So, and I go on giving talks all over the world. I go to many places and interact with many people. And I don't think that is a very big thing now here. But I can see that in Germany itself, that not Hindutva, other religions are also how they are getting more and more radicalized. These things you can see if you live in these countries in a different name. So, you see, there are so many things which I don't like to get entangled with. So I would just stop here, but it is not true that it is becoming a very alarming thing. Thank you.
Any other questions? I think everyone is quite satisfied. The lecture has been comprehensive. The arguments have been made. The history has been provided. Anand bhai, do you want to interact a little more since we have a little bit of time?
No, I think as everybody has expressed certain uncertainty about the present and the future linkages in terms of the quest for unity and diversity. And as Swamiji himself is based in Germany, where multiculturalism is being challenged by external and internal dynamics, I hope that there will be one step forward by orders like Ramakrishna Mission, because they have practiced it through thick and thin for nearly a century. A vision, a dream, and so many people are continuing to dedicate their life for it. So there must be something very satisfying for people like Swami Baneshananda. And we hope that through osmosis, we will get some impact of his positivity and his optimism in our own way of life and in our personal challenges. So please, Swamiji, continue engaging us. And dear Rahul, continue opening our minds through such discourses. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anand bhai. Thank you, Dr. Mishra. Thank you, Madhulika ji. Oh, there is one question. There is, no, that's not. So I think that the message that we need to carry from the idea of India is a clear message. There are different types of people who will work this message out differently. So for example, Swami Vivekananda had a disciple whose name was Sister Nivedita. She never became a part of the Ramakrishna order, but she participated in society and did many things which led to the uplift of India and led to the promotion of the ideas that Vivekananda held dear. At the same time, the Ramakrishna mission held her in the highest esteem. So there are different channels through which I think the idea of India will be respected in different ways. I think the channel of the Ramakrishna mission is to serve people and to help people uplift themselves spiritually. That channel, I'm sure, has a very, very significant role, because through that channel, it is householders like us who get motivated to work in a certain way. But on the other hand, there are people who are outside the mission who have to also uphold those ideals in a different way, because we are not monastics. We can do things that that are in the division of labor of a different type. And I think if the two synergize, and if the people who are outside the monastic realm can understand, imbibe, and inculcate the wisdom and put it in our lives so that not only for society, but for our own selves, we can have a more uplifting experience. That, I think, would be the way in which Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda would want this machine of not only Indian civilization, but world civilization to work, so that against the tyranny of greed, misery, hunger for power, there will also be a force which will always try to counterbalance without losing the optimism that the good and the truth will prevail in the end. So I think for that kind of energy, for that kind of spirit, we need some solid rock of understanding, some solid base of motivation. And I think that Swami Baneshananda ji has provided us, and the message is very clear. So I think we can perform our different roles in our different ways to pursue these issues. Thank you very much, Maharaj, for finding the time, and we will continue to associate ourselves as we have done in the past.
Namaskar.
So then we take leave today, and thank you all for being with us and making this such a lively event. Thank you.